It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would recognize Selectman D'Souza to lead us in the pledge.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, all members of the Board of Selectmen are in attendance. Our first item of business is the approval of the minutes from July 15th, 2021. Actually, before we do that, I have an added agenda item under unfinished business. I'd like to add agenda item 8D, which is discussion of the erase grants, which is why Mr. Krivet is joining us from vacation. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to add under unfinished business 8D, the erase grant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So much faster than a roll call. Okay, so our next item of business is an approval of meeting minutes, July 15th, 2021. They were in your packet. Anybody have any corrections or additions?
Move to approve the regular meeting minutes from July 15th.
Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Again, any corrections or additions or deletions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are adopted. Next is public participation. This is one of the public's two opportunities to address members of the board. If you'd like to let your opinion be known on anything, we'd be happy to hear that. There'll be another opportunity later in the meeting for the same. I'm going to start by asking if there's anybody physically present in the room, if they have anything that they would like to share, and then I'll ask members on the Zoom call. Are there any members in the audience who would like to address the board? Seeing none, anybody online via Zoom who would like to address us? Seeing none, there will be another opportunity later in the meeting to address the board. I do have a couple of communications that didn't make the agenda because of their timing, but I wanted to share them with you, and I'm going to read both of them verbatim. The first one is an invitation from the Broadbrook Fire Department to participate in their 125th celebration, which is on August 25th. The parade starts at 5 p.m. and it'll step off from the old carnival grounds at the intersection of Main Street and North Road. What is it? I'm sorry, it's the 21st at 5 p.m. I have it highlighted and everything. It's the 21st at 5 p.m. And that's their parade and fireworks display. So we've been invited to participate. I certainly plan to be there. I'm sure many, if not most of us, will do the same. The other piece, this is the part that I'm going to read verbatim. Many of you may not be aware, but there was a relatively significant fire in town on August 2nd. There was one person who was trapped inside the building at the Carousel Apartments and was able to be successfully extracted. So I'm going to read a letter from Fire Chief James Barton that was sent to Chief Art Carey. And then I have a couple of additions that I want to add to Chief Barton's comments. On August 2nd at 14:56, which is 3 p.m., the Warehouse Point Fire Department was dispatched to a reported structure fire at 27 Pleasant Street, which is the Carousel Apartments. The fire was located in the A building in apartment A13. As fire crews arrived on scene, dispatch reported that there was a victim trapped in the fire apartment. Fire crews immediately reported to the fire apartment to attempt to rescue the victim. As fire crews from Engine 12 arrived on scene, they immediately reported to the fire apartment to begin and assist with the rescue of one victim with the extinguishment of the apartment fire. Lieutenant Leo Szymanski and firefighter Sean Martin from the Broadbrook Fire Department located the victim in the rear of the building along with the fire. With the assistance of Lieutenant Matt Nucci from the Enfield Fire Department, they effectively rescued the victim from the burning apartment. The victim was still breathing and was transferred to the East Windsor EMS, and the victim was then transported to Hartford Hospital and immediately flown to Bridgeport Hospital. I'd just like to take a moment to commend and recognize your staff for their heroic efforts during this incident. Lieutenant Leo Szymanski and firefighter Sean Martin truly made a difference in the outcome of this incident. It's reassuring to know that your department is always there to assist in times of need. Sincerely, James P. Barton, Fire Chief. What the fire chief didn't say is that he was the first one in the building. And he was the first one in the building without assistance, and actually is the one who located the victim. As was reported to me, and I would allow the chief to correct me, of course, if I have it wrong, but as he reported it to me the day of, the smoke was so thick that he couldn't see any pathways in the apartment. He found the victim by following her oxygen tank and the hose from the oxygen tank to her bed where she was. So I share that just to let everybody know how heroic and dedicated the people who serve this town are. I have had the unfortunate circumstance of responding to, I think, 4 of these now since I've been in office, and they are awe-inspiring, and they are terrible, and they are important to recognize the people who serve our community. So at a later date, I'm going to ask this board to do a formal recognition of those firefighters who actually saved this person's life. That would include Chief Barton, Lieutenant Szymanski, Firefighter Martin, and Lieutenant Nietzsche. I think that is wholly appropriate. I don't have any other communications to share. So we would move on to resignations, appointments, and reappointments. We have a couple. First, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Can I do David King's both together?
Sure.
Okay, I'll move to accept the resignation of David King from the Pension Board and Board of Finance with regret.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Just real quick, I don't know if it's excluded from the package, but I don't have it, but he's only resigned from the Board of Finance and not the pension. There's no letter for the pension, but that's in
There was a reason for that, and I don't offhand remember what it was, but I'll follow up to make sure that that's appropriately done. Dave is moving out of town. He and his wife have purchased a lovely home in West Hartford. He has quietly served the town of East Windsor for a long time, very impactfully. He is an expert in, and I will say truly is an expert in matters of finance and investment, and he's led the pension board to a place that has saved the town a considerable amount of money. His quiet impact will be missed. Any other discussion?
I don't know where we're gonna find somebody else to replace it.
By the way, if anybody would like to serve on the pension board, we can get an application. All those in favor of accepting the resignation with regret?
Aye.
Opposed? Next up, Mr. Ouellette. So Joe Ouellette has been a member of the East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission board for a very long time, measured in probably a decade and a half or more. And it has shared with me that he's recently received a very deserved promotion at work that will put him in conflict with some of the work of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So regretfully, we are losing him, but it's good for Joe as he moves up to a more significant role at the Office of the State Traffic Authority. I have a motion to accept Joe's resignation with regret.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Joe Ouellette from Planning and Zoning Commission with regret.
Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I can't tell with the mask. So we have a vacancy now on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we have a candidate for the Planning and Zoning Commission. That candidate is Joe Sauerhofer. His application was included in your packet. Could I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept Joseph Sauerhofer for the position Planning and Zoning Commission for regular member for a term expiring October 1st, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of, I'm sorry.
I was just looking for him in a chat.
Yeah. All those in favor of appointing Joe Sauerhofer to the Planning and Zoning Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Mr. Sauerhofer is appointed. Next, we have a vacancy on the East Windsor Police Commission. Tom Reardon has volunteered to fill out the remainder of that term, which expires in November of this year. I understand as a candidate, an unopposed candidate for that position subsequent to that, but we can only appoint people through the next election. So the application is for Thomas Reardon on the East Windsor Police Commission. I looked over his application and he is a great fit. So I'm grateful to have him step forward. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to accept the application of Thomas Reardon to fill the position of police commission effective November 16th, no, for a term expiring November 16th, 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we're going to turn to Mr. Krivda and take up a discussion of the East Windsor Erase Grant update. Sarah, can you change that to speaker view, please? George, are you with us?
I'm here.
How's the weather?
It's pretty nice now. It was overcast most of the day, a little bit of rain earlier, but it's wonderful. I'm looking at myself on the screen and I look like one of those FBI informants that you can't tell what they look like because of the backdrop, but sorry for that.
Oh, how are we doing?
Very well. We have 53 applicants, 25 since Saturday. So in the last 5 days, we've gotten 25 applicants. Generally speaking, they all require a second contact. Very few supplied all the information we need to be able to make a determination on the face of it. But you know, the stories are remarkable. The things folks did in the community to keep operating, the ingenuity, it's all very inspiring. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to help the town and to help the folks in the town, businesses, nonprofits. And I feel pretty good about it. I think I've cleared probably half of them. Before I left on Sunday morning, I had gotten through everything that was before us. And like I say, another 25 have come through. I've been able to do a quick review of them, begin to, you know, set up the files, etc. And when I get back first thing Monday morning, I'll be on the phone and contacting folks and processing these and keeping track of the rest of the ones that come in. But I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing. And, you know, I think there's going to be a deluge at the end here. So I'll keep everyone informed. I'll keep the first selectman informed daily. And we'll keep marching through them. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Before we open it up to questions, just for the benefit of the folks in the audience, the town of East Windsor was the recipient of a substantial amount of money from the American Rescue Plan Act, the federal relief bill that was passed in springtime. With that approval, we were able to spend that federal appropriation on 5 different things, and only 5 things. It needs to fit into one of these silos: revenue recapture for lost revenue, hazard pay for frontline employees, tourism, water, sewer, and broadband projects, and small business, nonprofit, and household assistance. So the Board of Selectmen appropriated $900,000 to do small business assistance for small businesses and nonprofits that had an economic impact as a result of the pandemic. We are in the process of soliciting those applications now. They're going to be accepted through the end of business on Monday. There has been a press event that had Senator Blumenthal and Congressman Larson at it, 2 articles in the Journal Enquirer, an article in North Central News, a mailing that went to 360 eligible businesses and nonprofits in the community. More than 65 businesses visited door to door. We have done everything we can to let the word go forth that there's this opportunity here. And The next step will be, once that deadline passes, George will start reviewing with the help of Lily Bluestein, who's helping us with this project as well, the applicants to find any deficiencies that they may have in their application, so we can correct that and help them get to yes effectively. Our objective here is to try and pump almost $1 million into our local economy to support our small businesses and nonprofits, because as a taxpayer, their success is our success. And, we want to make sure that they have the support of the town, even if it's in an amount of up to $10,000. So, does any member of the board have any questions or comments on where we are to date?
Sounds great. I'm really glad that we have that much response so far. It's really perfect.
Yeah, it has come around. It was slow to go, slow to get going and a little concerning, but it's turned around this week for sure. And to George's point, we're hopeful that over the next couple of days, we'll get more than that. So, any other questions or comments for George? George, enjoy the wild horses.
Thank you. Have a good evening, folks.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll still end that. That's fine. Okay, now we're going to move on to new business. And the first presentation that we're going to have is from a young man named Eric Duncan. Eric is correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, a rising junior at East Windsor High School. And his teacher, Mr. Mosier, sent me a presentation that he did for one of his science classes in the springtime, because he knows that we've kind of started thinking along some of these lines. But Eric has a proposal or a presentation on municipal investments in solar infrastructure. When I took a look at the first couple of, at his initial presentation, it was better than companies that come in and pitch these to us on the regular. And so I thought, for a number of reasons, this was worth bringing to the Board of Selectmen. First of all, it's certainly a testament to Eric and where he is in his schooling to show that he has a very clear picture that is right in line with where real companies in the real world are. In fact, he's surpassing them. But I also thought that it was an opportunity for us, the five of us, to start thinking about where are we going and what are we going to be doing in terms of infrastructure investment now that we have additional bond capacity after the added appropriation in the fall. So Eric, you please feel free to offer an introduction and come up and do your show.
So the project that we were tasked with was creating something or thinking of something that could help the community in terms of a scientific environmental way. So what I chose to do is solar canopies, which are essentially, as you can see in the photo, they cover car parking lots and their solar panels. And it makes great use of existing space, because a lot of times solar panels are filled with fields or empty space that can be used for other things. But this is just reusing space that, like covers cars, parking lots. So you're not like creating more, you're just using what's there. We'll run the first slide. All right, yeah, so like I said, there are solar panels that cover parking lots in existing places, and no new land needs to be cleared, which can preserve the wild. And one of the best things is that they can shade cars and protect them from the elements. So a lot of times cars parked in a really hot parking lot will just get absolutely baked and get hundreds of degrees in there, and it's really not good for anyone who's sitting in the car or even getting back into your car because it's incredibly hot. So it shades your cars, it can make them much cooler. And also, like, snow won't get on them if you're parked in a parking lot for an extended period of time. There's really no downside to this, besides the initial cost of placing them, because they're generating free energy from the sun, covering cars and creating cool areas, and not like clearing any more space. So imagine some parking lots and even some roads covered. Parking lots are more realistic, but Germany, that's the Autobahn in Germany, they're actually want to cover the entire Autobahn with solar panels, which would generate a lot of electricity while just making use of an existing roadway. You can go to the next slide. So these are some of the facts. So pavement makes up 35 to 50% of cities, which is a large portion of them. And 40% of that is just parking lots. So just covering parking lots, covering a substantial amount of area and space. So since the car is shaded, AC usage decreases, which can improve fuel economy and energy consumption if you have an electric car. Because when they're parked there in the boiling heat without solar panels or any covering over them, Obviously, they're gonna get hotter, so the AC has to be run more in order to maintain a cool temperature. But if they're covered, you're gonna be using that less. So if only a few major parking lots were covered in Connecticut, 37.8% of our energy needs would be met. That's specific to Connecticut. Just a few major areas, some different areas like parking lots and things like that, almost half of our energy. That's a substantial amount. And also, if these lots are coupled with EV chargers, that could be really good for the future and decrease the hesitancy of people buying electric vehicles. Because 65% of people who don't drive electric vehicles, one of their main concerns is that how am I going to charge this? If I'm going on a trip or something like that, where am I going to plug in if I'm not at my house? So all they would be able to do now is just pull into a solar panel. It's clean energy and it's coming right from like the sun right there. And there could be everywhere, so you don't have to worry about going too far without, not being able to charge. Go to the next slide. So this is just a graph I have here that kind of shows and breaks down. It may look daunting at first to do solar panels, but over time it gets better. So the red line is currently what most people use, which is fossil fuels, which you start off at zero. So it's really easy to get into, but over time you're just paying for energy. Over the years, you're just going to be going negative. So after 8 years or 8 to 10 years, you're already down $20,000 versus solar panels and clean energy. It's initial investment of a lot of money, but it saves money over time. A lot of times they can pay for themselves within 15 to 20 years because it generates so much energy that you're no longer paying for it, to the electric company, 2 places. You can also sell off the energy as well if you're plugging into the grid, which is a lot of people do. My grandparents have solar panels on their house, and they're plugged into the grid and they actually make money from it because, they have to pay the service charge, but they're selling the energy to Eversource. So it really is an investment for the future. You know the next slide. So my proposal would be to cover maybe the school's parking lot or some other different parking lots within the town with a solar canopy and possibly electric vehicle chargers. You could have that business, or if the school was in a for example, they could become energy independent if they could plug right into that. Or they could just, like my grandparents do, and a lot of people do, is just put it right into the grid. The cars would be sheltered and the parking lot would be clear of snow in the winter. And a lot of the times in the winter, the solar panels, they melt the snow very quickly. So it's not really an issue and the plows don't have to go in there. Obviously on a larger level, it'd be great if that would be able to happen across the town, even the state. Hopefully in the future, that will be something that will happen. And on top of that, even if you don't cover the panels, you can cover the warehouses and businesses with them, with just solar panels in general, because that's still making great use of existing space. And I think it would be a great allocation of funds and preserves the future and eventually will save money. And then this is kind of an example, just a parking lot cover. All that field space up there, it's not being utilized by the solar panels. You don't have to use space that's already wild or in nature. You can just cover what's existing. All those cars, they're shaded. It's really cool down there, and that's generating a ton of power energy. And that's just my work side.
Very cool. So I honestly have had companies represented by very expensive lobbyists who have given proposals that are not that detailed and not that comprehensive. So Eric, I want to thank you for taking the time to share this with us and come here tonight. I'm going to start by asking if any members of the board of selectmen have any questions. Anyway.
Yeah, I just want to know where it was when we first started getting requests to put solar on the ground. So it certainly would have been something that we could have presented to them. But great job, thank you.
You didn't by chance talk to any schools or businesses that currently have this when doing the research?
I have not yet.
Okay.
I would be open to doing that.
I know, for instance, the aerospace school in Windsor has this type of setup. They have several solar canopies over their parking lot. When they built that school, they installed them right there and then. And they've had them for several years now because that school is probably 2 or 3 years old now. So it'd be interesting to see if they had any pros or cons as to what they offer since they've had them. And they're probably getting close to the point where they're recouping their money now. So I think if we had questions, they'd be a great place to start.
And that would be very interesting to see, their experience and what
Right.
happened with it. Or did they save money? How fast? How much energy they're generating?
Right.
That's a good suggestion.
Mhm.
The Buckland Mall has them too, pretty,
Yeah.
very similar
Yep.
to this.
Yes.
And they do have electric vehicle chargers at Buckland Mall as well.
You do?
Mhm.
Other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Great job.
So I think you're spot on also by recognizing that one of the drawbacks to really seeing a fully electric fleet come online is the infrastructure. Being able to charge up, you can go 300 miles on a charge, but you got to know where that charge is going to come from, or you're not coming 300 miles back. How did you get interested in this as a topic?
Well, I've always been interested in clean energy and electric vehicles, things like that. And, after doing a little bit of research about, where energy comes from, a lot of it is from fossil fuels and things like that. And especially electric cars, if they're just plugged into our existing grid, it makes a little bit of a difference. But if you're driving clean energy and then just plugging into getting from fossil fuels and things like that, it's not that great. So if you could just have clean energy everywhere, it would just make such a difference in the future in how we operate as a society.
Thank you. Mr. Mosier is Eric's teacher, and Mr. Mosier, could you share with us a bit about the overall context of the assignment and what else you saw when you saw these results?
Sure, so the project, this is culminating assignment for the whole school year. This is their big get out of class project. So, and so it was biology, 10th grade biology. I think a lot of us remember 10th grade biology being very like, here's a frog, we're gonna cut it open. That's what it is. But it's shifted over the last couple of years to focusing on human impact to the environment, to the world around us. My background is in ecology and conservation biology. So we looked at everything from human impact on populations of species diversity. We looked at how different emissions affect different parts of the environment. We looked at water. We looked at everything, and the whole focus was to bring it back to we are a part of the ecosystem. We are part of biology. We are not just separated from it. So at the end of the year, I gave them free rein to say, okay, we've heard all these stories of, we watched a video actually just before this of Sir David Attenborough, went over his life and what's changed and how wilderness is changing. I was like, okay, you guys have the skills, you guys have all of the knowledge. How would you fix your future? Because, I tell them, even if, I'm gonna be 37 next Tuesday, I'm like, my time is already starting to shorten up on the impact that I can really make. And you guys being 16, you guys are the future. So what would you guys like to see? So we had solar panels. Somebody did a white roof project where if you paint the roofs in cities that are typically tar, if you paint them white, they will actually more than compensate for the amount of ice melt that's happening at the poles. And the ice is important for reflecting all that heat energy and that sort of stuff. We had students that were talking about rewilding certain areas, letting them, farmland that is not currently being used, let it go back to something that is more sustainable, or even using it in a sustainable fashion like sustainable agriculture, where you have rotational grazing, you don't have feedlots, you have multi-species all being involved. So these kids, some of them, like Eric, we just kind of talked about solar panels, okay, they're good. We talked about the town at the time was talking about potentially putting it in. And then all of a sudden, he does a little bit of research and he's like, hey, why don't we put these over parking lots? And I'm like, it's great. Parking lots are black, they're hot, everybody knows getting a car. It's, there's nothing worse than walking out of an air conditioned building onto a hot pavement in that summer just hit you right in the face. And, this is one of those ideas where it does a little bit of research, things outside the box. And my goal is to have the kids say, oh, that makes sense. Why shouldn't everybody, not just East Windsor, why shouldn't everybody be looking at this as an option? all it's gonna do is benefit everyone. So, I want kids to be able to walk out of my classroom, understand what they read, understand, that they can make impact, and, that the world is theirs.
Thank you. So this is good because it's not only a green project, it's not only an energy efficient project and a clean project, but it's an economic project too. One of the things I think anybody who's a victim of Eversource can say is every time the electric bill goes up, the electric bill goes up, and there's nothing you can do about it. So looking at different ways of having a more carbon neutral footprint while also controlling the costs, and our electric bill is one of the major costs in our municipal budget. By controlling or stabilizing the cost of electricity over time, that's just good budgeting. That's just good economics, and it's doing something that's good for the planet. So again, I just want to thank you for putting this together and giving us a general direction of things that we should be thinking about as we get ready to make investments in our own infrastructure. So thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you here.
Okay. I gotta find my stuff. That's not it. Get my package on.
Yeah.
That's for later. Okay, the next item, this is gonna be a very fun meeting. I'm already having a very good time with this. So the next item is a request from the American Heritage River Commission. You've been doing a lot of work for the town to make sure we had passive recreation outdoors for more than 20 years now. They have asked that we consider renaming, thank you guys very much, really appreciate your time. They have asked that we consider renaming a couple of the primary access points for the Scantic River, and they provided us with some recommendations for them. So the first one is an area commonly referred to as the filter beds, where the rubber duck race and the cardboard boat race launch from every year. Their recommendation is to rename that trolley crossing. Now, before we go any further, I want to explain the process of how we rename a town park. That's a legislative function. So we are not the legislative body for the town. We're the executive body for the town. So we need to make a recommendation and forward to town meeting a recommended change. So I would ask for a motion to rename the filter beds trolley crossing and forward to a town meeting. Do I have that motion?
I'd like to make a motion to rename the filter beds to trolley crossing and move it forward to a town meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. The next one I want to take up is the area located on Route 140, which is formerly owned by the Hensel family. And they would like the board to consider renaming that Heritage Park. Could I have a motion to rename Heritage Park and forward that to the town meeting?
I'll move that we rename, we forward to a town meeting, the renaming of that area to Heritage Park.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The third recommendation that the AHRC submitted to us was for the parking lot at the end of Cemetery Road. Before we go any further, in doing some research, I asked the town clerk to actually look into this. There's only one person who has served on the American Heritage River Commission since its inception, and that is Dick Sherman. Mr. Sherman, I want to thank you very much for your service on behalf of that group and to the town of East Windsor. That is a really awesome accomplishment over 23 years. 22 years. Well, thank you very much for all that you've done for the town through the work on the Scantic River. You guys asked us to rename that park Button Bridge, and I don't think that is appropriate. I think that we ought to rename that the Master Sergeant Richard U. Sherman Town Park. Could I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I think that's a great honor for somebody that has devoted all them years to the town of East Windsor. And if anybody hasn't seen what they've done, you're missing out because our waterways would not be the way they are if it wasn't for those groups and what they're doing. From testing the waters to being down there, taking out the trash, the whole committee. Dick, you deserve it. I hope you accept it. And keep up the good work.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I think Marie said it best. Thank you, Mr. Sherman, for your service.
I'd like to just point out, like, pretty much all our passive recreation is provided to us by the AHRC, so it's been a monumental task over the years, and I really think it's a deserved recognition.
Great job.
Thank you for your many years of service. We certainly appreciate it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll schedule that for a town meeting. So, while we're in renaming things, and this is something I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about. You know, this board has really invested in town hall, and we have done a lot of renovations over the last year to modernize it, to make it more user-friendly for our constituents, to make it a town hall that we can all be proud of and that we can come to and it represents our community instead of just a cinder block building. One of the things we did tonight was we dedicated that art piece, which it commemorates the town's agricultural history. It was donated by local artist Karen Stavelone. There's been a lot of work that has been done. And as I look back in the town's history, there's one person who really has done a lot of work on behalf of the town government. John Daly served as first selectman in the town of East Windsor from 1955 to 1975, a record that is unbeaten going back in the town's history to 1847. The man was so dedicated, he was known to empty the trash cans himself at the end of the night and treat the town's money like it was his own. He was a dedicated public servant who I think it would be wholly appropriate to consider renaming this room the John Daly Meeting Room. Joining us tonight is Skip Daly, who is John's son. John, if you'd like to say a couple words on your dad's behalf.
I would. And Mr. Selectman, board members, and friends and people from the town of East Windsor. A huge thank you for this honor given to my dad, John L. Daly Jr. The top priority in Dad's life were family, God, and the town of East Windsor. Might not all be in that order, and not necessarily in that order. Dad spent many hours in this building, and most likely this is the exact room. I know Dad is smiling down on us right now and holding his head high. Our family is so proud. We truly appreciate that being remembered in a very special way. And I want to thank you very much.
Mr. Daly's service is unparalleled to the community, and I think this is a lovely thing for us to consider. This does not require a town meeting approval. This is a meeting space in the town building. It's not a town park or town asset. So the decision, I think, is mine alone, but I want to ask the board to affirm that. So if I could have a motion to rename our meeting room the John Daly Meeting Room, I would appreciate that.
I'd be honored to make that motion to name our meeting room the John L. Daly Jr. Meeting room. Well deserved.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. And we'll do, we'll have a plaque made up and we'll do a more formal ceremony when it's ready and safe to congregate. Mr. Daly, thank you for the service of your family over many years. Thank you. Our next item is a presentation from the East Windsor Greater Together Community Fund. They have a presentation as well. I'll invite them to come up and give us an update on where they are and see if there's someone who can support them. Oh, Lily, I don't know how to make this do its thing. Present.
Okay, good evening. My name is Joan and I'm here with Carol and Lily and Bob, and we're here representing the East Windsor Community Fund Advisory Committee. And we're happy to be making the first announcement of available funding for community initiatives in East Windsor. And tonight, we want to provide you with a little information about this program from the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving and how our town residents can benefit from the funds the Hartford Foundation has provided us. And first, Carol and Lily will provide more detail about what the advisory committee and the community funds are, and the roles and responsibilities of our committee, and how the funds are going to be available, and who is eligible for these funds, and how the committee is going to help facilitate the distribution of the funds to support town initiatives. And then lastly, we're going to let you know how you can help us accomplish our responsibilities as a committee to benefit the residents of East Windsor. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol now.
Hello, folks. I'm Carol Pandria. I am the secretary of the East Windsor Community Fund Advisory Committee. And I'm also a small business owner, founder of the nonprofit Eco Titans, and an East Windsor resident. Not in that order. We'll take the next slide. So in 2018, the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving conducted a listening tour. During this listening tour, people talked about the needs in their communities and pretty much the lack of resources that they had to get those needs. In response to these conversations, the Hartford Foundation decided to create the Greater Together Community Program. In 2019, the Hartford Foundation established $100,000 for each of the 29 towns that they service, and East Windsor is one of those towns. Next slide. The purpose of the Greater Together Community Fund Program is to encourage residents to take ownership of the needs of their town. It also encourages broad and inclusive civic engagement. Next slide. In 2020, the East Windsor Greater Together Community Fund Advisory Committee, I have that down in an acronym, so I don't remember, was selected. We identified our purpose as discovering the greatest needs in our community, and we committed to designing a grant-making process that aimed to ensure that the community funds would have the greatest impact and benefit for our residents. Our advisory committee is made up of East Windsor residents. As we recruit new members, we strive to keep our community inclusive and reflective of our town. In order to achieve our goals on our committee, we need to inform the East Windsor residents of our program, solicit feedback on what the needs are in the community, select initiatives that answer those needs, and finally, ensure these initiatives are put into action. Now, Lily will go over the next slide.
So in regard to the available funds, we have our $100,000 community fund that the Hartford Foundation has granted to us. And $50,000 of that is for immediate current use, and another $50,000 is an endowment, meaning that a percentage of the dollars will be available every year to grant following the Hartford Foundation spending policy. And we are about to begin our first round of grant making. And we're making $30,000 initially available, and grant applicants will be able to request a grant between $250 and $10,000. Next slide. And in regard to who is eligible to receive grant money, there are 4 groups that are namely eligible. The first is nonprofits registered as 501c3 organizations that serve the residents of East Windsor. Nonprofit organizations that serve the town of East Windsor that are not located in East Windsor are also eligible to apply. Additionally, groups of town residents may prepare an application in partnership with a registered nonprofit that has agreed to serve as a fiscal agent for their proposed project. And additionally, the Hartford Foundation has recently expanded eligibility to government and municipal entities in certain situations. And lastly is non-sectarian initiatives of religious organizations, which really just means non-religious initiatives that religious nonprofits may want to execute. And for-profit institutions and individuals are not eligible. Next slide. So the roles and responsibilities of our committee have already kind of been outlined, and it's really to identify community needs and design a broad and inclusive plan to allocate community funds among local initiatives to address those needs. So soon we are going to advertise grant availability, provide guidance to potential grant recipients, and evaluate all submitted grant applications. After we finish these evaluations, we'll decide which initiatives will provide the greatest benefit to our residents, and then we'll submit our decisions to the Hartford Foundation. And the Hartford Foundation will then award the grants to our chosen initiatives. And to accomplish our responsibilities, we put together subcommittees to ensure that all our tasks are completed carefully and efficiently. And through these subcommittees, we prepare the application materials, marketing materials, and a plan to keep our advisory committee diverse and representative of East Windsor residents. And we will soon be announcing the availability of these funds in the fall using print and social media as well as a letter. And turning it back over to Jones.
So in order to be successful, we need your help, the board of selectmen. You can help us by communicating the availability of the funds after we officially announce the program in September. And in ways you can do that is to reach out to town departments, boards, commissions, and inform them of the availability of these funds. I mean, hopefully they'll all see it on social media, and we'll be sending out letters to all the nonprofits and everything, but we still need you to advertise for us. And we'd like to be able to include information about the community funds in the town newsletter and once the grant applications begin. And finally, if people contact anybody on the board here with any questions or an interest in applying for a grant, that you'll direct them to our email address or our website. And we'd like to thank you for having us. And now we'd like to open it for any questions or comments. And maybe here, if you already have some thoughts as to what you think might be some of the greatest needs in the town for our residents.
Can I start off with a question?
Sure.
First of all, thank you very much for putting this presentation together, for the work that your committee has done to get to this point. I know it's been a lot of work to get here, and I think you guys have done a great job putting this together. In terms of inclusion in the newsletter, when do you have something ready? Because our November issue is set to go to print like within the next week or so.
Okay.
If you could have something soon, we can make sure that that gets in, and that'll hit mailboxes sometime late October, early November. It's a November edition.
Most of the documents are already completed, so we will have that sent over to you.
Perfect. Great. I'd be happy to make sure that I got it.
That would be
They're
wonderful.
great.
Questions or comments from the board?
Thank you for updating us. It's nice to know where you guys stand at this time. You said you'll be launching the program, did you say it's September? And do you know the time frame of how long the process, the time frame when it will end, or how long you'll be accepting applications?
Bob, if you want to
Yeah,
say some things, Chris.
We're still finalizing it, but we plan to announce it in September. It should really put out a lot of media, newspapers, Facebook. Gonna send a letter to every single resident, so they should know about it. And then that should last into maybe we'll have an information session here. But when we announce it, then we open it up for applications. So hopefully in September, we'll accept applications. The applications will allow about 6 weeks for people to get the applications in. So that would bring us about to the end of November, then we start October, so we should have all the applications in there. Then we'll make our decisions, and then, okay, so once we make our decisions, then we have to go through the Hartford Foundation for public giving. And once we make the decision of who's gonna get it and they approve, but we just want to make sure that we're doing our job correctly. And that might take about 3 weeks for them to get the money out the door. So we're figuring about the end of December when the money will be distributed.
Maybe a Christmas present.
So just a point of clarification on that. So the application period will close by the beginning of November?
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we plan.
Okay, then the newsletter is not going to be helpful in that regard because it won't hit until then. It's a quarterly publication. It's going to go out
Yeah.
after your deadline. So that
Goes out. When does it go out?
it's going to hit mailboxes sometime around the 1st of November.
That would be okay.
Oh, no, because the application
No,
period is
yeah.
from September to
Yeah,
October.
but we really want to advertise it and market it at the beginning to say that we want people to apply, just like we did. And we've done well. I guess. We have a lot less money to give away than
Well, the missions are different too.
yeah.
You know, you guys are backed by the philanthropic organization. We're backed by the Fed. So we can do the small business thing, which I think you guys indicated you're precluded.
No,
from.
ours is nonprofit. And,
Can you do direct aid? Well, one of the things I was thinking about is rental assistance. Because when the federal moratorium on that expires, there's going to be an avalanche of evictions across the country.
We can reach out to the Hartford Foundation and see if, it wasn't brought up that we can or cannot, so I don't know if the question's been asked. But we can definitely look into direct aid and get back to you guys
Have you had a conversation with Melissa Maltesi
on direct aid.
on the highest and best use of this fund in general? Melissa runs our recreation and community services, so she's got social services and senior services under her umbrella. And she often has her finger on the pulse for, in terms of smaller need pockets that may often be overlooked.
I had a brief conversation with her about it. I think she had a lot with the, I think right before the splash pad was opening, so she had a lot going on there, but we can follow up with her on that too.
I know,
It's a great
and
resource.
whether or not it's permissible or not, I know the eviction thing is really high on her radar screen right now, but so too are some of the senior services that have been impacted. Could be a Meals on Wheels component, or it could be people being in, some transportation concerns, or, I think that's a conversation that could be helpful to you guys in terms of finding who you should be focusing your advertising on.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Great.
Back to your slide with criteria, was that criteria put together by your group, or was that the criteria that the Hartford Foundation requires?
The Hartford Foundation's criteria.
I'm going to show my ignorance publicly, I apologize. But do you have an example, it says groups of town residents partnered with a designated fiscal agent?
So when we talked about this, we talked about different committees that the town has. So the town has a diversity committee, let's say, but they're not a nonprofit.
Right.
So if the diversity committee, and I'm only using them because it's one of the few committees that I know, so if somebody else on a committee said this would apply. But if the diversity committee gets together and says that they have a project they want done, they don't qualify as a nonprofit. But they can go to the town and the town can serve as a fiscal agent for them. So the town would get the funds and then distribute it to that committee to make that work possible. So that's how that's done.
One of the things the Hartford Foundation is particularly interested in is issues of diversity and inclusion.
It is.
Also around housing. I think the diversity angle is probably a good one to look more into as well.
I just needed clarification, for that in case anybody asked that, or didn't know information.
We had asked the same question. That's how we got the answer, I guess.
So this, I think you said $30,000 is what you were doing this time around. Now, how will it work going forward? Are you guys like are you guys on staggered terms, or do you plan on doing this again next year, or are you just kind of doing it one step at a time, or do you know what the future holds for this?
I would say, yeah, one step at a time. How we're going through
Okay.
this. So structurally, we're all on staggered terms to begin, and then there's 2 terms, both 3-year lengths for any new members who come on board. And then there's an exception for students who can sign on for 1 year because our members can start at the age of 14 with parental acceptance.
Oh, okay.
So students, 1 year, and then anybody else would be 3 years and up to 2 terms. So far as financially, so the town has $50,000 to grant and then a $50,000 endowment. We are opening 30,000 of that for the first round. So let's say we don't use it, then we have at least 20 plus whatever we don't use for the next year. And then with the endowment, whatever interest I believe gets accrued, then that would go into the next year too. And so the money will continue to grow through that endowment.
Do you accept donations for the endowment?
Yes.
So the $50,000 could be seed money, it's interest bearing, but you can also accept donations and grow that.
Yes.
What is your website? Do you have that information for us?
Well, that'll be public, and we want to, and we're, actually, we're just starting to put a Facebook out on that too, and, our website is really a subsite of the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. So if you and I haven't memorized it, but if you go in there and move and, once you get into the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, ask for the East Windsor page, you should be able to see it.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I just saw their website this morning, because it gives you a list of sites that you can sign up to when they're on there.
Okay.
It's trying to find it. That's what you might find.
Social service nonprofits eligible?
I think any 501c3.
Any 501c. So the reason I'm asking is does the Hartford Foundation have a preference for mission?
Not that we're aware of for this particular, the only thing is it has to benefit the residents of East Windsor. So I think that's the criteria. Unless you guys have. thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's really up to the advisory committee to decide where we want to allocate the money and what we would think would best serve the residents of East Windsor.
There's nothing else? Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
So wasted wearing masks again. I was kidding.
Hard to tell, can't see your face.
I know. I'm going to ask that we table agenda item 9E, a discussion of a tax sale settlement to include Patty Prattville. We're going to have an executive session. We'll talk about a particular instance and then come out and take action on that. So the next item on our to-do list is discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, if I could have that.
I'll make a motion that we table the tax sale settlement discussion to include Patty. Your last name?
Patty Ken.
Yep, Patty, to later this evening.
Second.
All in favor? Agenda item 9F. You want to take part on this? You want to? So one of the things that has been under discussion by a number of boards and commissions and at the staff level for a while is the establishment of an open space ordinance, which would allow for open space to be considered under a tax assistance program similar to Public Act 490. There have been conversations back and forth between the Ag Commission, our board, I think, the Planning and Zoning Commission on what the specific parameters of that should be. The draft is in front of you. There's only one area that still is open, which is the determination and classification, which is under, it's on page 3 under agenda, under item 5, for 5E. So you guys have had a chance to look at this, I think, a couple times. Any comments? Are you ready to go with this?
Yeah, I do remember that we had, as a board, last time we discussed this, we were not sure how often we wanted that 5E to be. With that, it's still open annually, 2 years, et cetera, right?
Yeah, the
Any feedback from the assessor with the.
Yeah. So the application would be due on, it's a 10-year sign up. So you sign up once, you don't have to sign up again for 10 years. If the property transfers within that 10-year period, say it transfers after 6 years, then you'll have a conveyance tax equaling 40% of the tax benefit that was offered. So it's a sliding scale. It depreciates over time, so that if something should happen and you should convey your property before that 10 years runs, then you would owe something back to the town in terms of that forgiven tax. If you get past that entire 10-year period, you start the clock.
I think that was the only question we had, right?
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah. We're gonna do this, assuming everybody's good with it, we're gonna do it on the 19th.
Well, so that's the thing. We're going to do it at the next town meeting.
Gotcha.
Whether it's the 19th or not is going to be somewhat COVID dependent.
That's right.
I would like to do that as soon as possible, but we all need to decide if we're comfortable continuing to do in-person stuff. Or if we want to take a pause for 6 or 8 weeks or so to let things cool down a bit. That's another discussion that we can have, whether it be online or offline. This would be done at an in-person town meeting, just like wetlands ordinance would be, just like the other things that we have teed up would be. I want to do our next town meeting, meaningful town meeting, to be an in-person one. The Zoom stuff is it's not a good format for that. So I have a list going of things that would take place at the next in-person town meeting. This would be added to that list. Why is everybody sitting over there?
Because
Is it you? So, are we ready to approve this and forward it to a town meeting? And motion to do something.
Yeah, what am I going?
It's the open space ordinance.
I'll move that we move the open space ordinance to a town meeting for a vote.
There a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Tax refunds.
Move to approve the tax refunds totaling $765.64.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And he never puts my name on the list. Selectmen's reports. Okay, I talked a little bit before about the circumstances of Carousel Apartments and wanting to commemorate that at a future time when we could have those gentlemen here, so I'll forego that. I also want to congratulate Jason Crisati and Matthew Emerson, who this evening were both named to the rank of Eagle Scouts. Their commitment and dedication has paid off, and they'll now be able to call themselves Eagle Scouts for the rest of your life. Like a few other designations, you never were an Eagle Scout, you are an Eagle Scout. It's a rank you earn, it's a rank you attain while you're young, but you earn throughout your life. So I wish them congratulations. The town is still accepting grant applications for our erase grants to help with small businesses and nonprofits that were impacted by the pandemic. The criteria is on the website. Again, we have done a full court press to make sure people knew about that. The deadline for that is close of business on Monday. I want to thank George Krivda, who's our consultant, Lily Bluestein, who's helping with our project as well, and town staff who helped develop that. It became a collaborative group effort that I think hopefully will serve its purpose. After all was said and done, the town last year returned $500,000 to the general fund. We were able to still get some pretty impressive things done in the last fiscal year and be mindful and respectful of taxpayers' money. We're once again monitoring the COVID situation, as I talked about. In our health district, the rolling daily average as of today is 3.35%. That is higher, but in a conversation with the health director this morning, a question that I asked was if that is representative of fewer healthy people getting tested regularly. And she said that you can't discount who the people who are taking the tests are, but you should be monitoring that daily rolling average to see if there's actually something happening out there. In East Windsor, we've had 2 positive COVID cases, I think, in the last 8 weeks. So that's good news, but everything else seems to be heating up. So I think we're going to be proceeding with some degree of caution. There are 2 variants that are out there. One of them is being publicly talked about is Delta. And the Delta variant, the existing vaccines seem to work against the Delta variant, but you may still be able to pass it on. The one that is scaring me to death is the one that people aren't talking about yet, which is a Peruvian one called the Lambda variant. That one, the vaccines don't work against. So it's hopeful that we can get enough herd immunity and crowd control here so that we don't need to worry about what may be coming down the road. But I'm watching that with concern. On July 20th, Senator Anwar and Representatives Foster and Hall and I and Sarah attended the recognition at the East Windsor Police Department for their work in launching their mental health team. The good efforts of our local department are being recognized regionally and by state leaders, and I really think the meaningful and proactive approach that we're taking to mental health needs and law enforcement could serve as a model going forward. So that was great to be a part of. A couple of reminders about things that are coming up on the 21st, not the 25th, the 21st. Robert Fire Department will be celebrating its 125th anniversary with a parade and a fireworks display. The parade will be at 5 o'clock and will step off from the old carnival grounds and end at the East Windsor Park. They have 14, as of yesterday, they have 14 fire departments confirmed to participate with a list that continues to grow. So that should be a really cool thing. Also coming up in September, I think it's the weekend of the 18th, is the Four Town Fair, and this year is East Windsor's rotation to host. So likely planned for the Four Town Fair parade to be on that Saturday. That's all that I have. I would recognize the Deputy First Selectman.
I don't really have much to report because I didn't have any official meetings that were assigned to me. But I do want to extend congratulations, not that's a poor choice of word. I want to extend my condolences to the family going through what they're going through with the fire. And I want to commend the fire departments for a job well done. I was out of town, so I haven't been able to get to any of them, but I've been asking. So thank you for recognizing them coming up in the future. The other thing is the National Night Out. I had an opportunity. I got back at I think 5:20 and got there about 10:06 finally. It was a good time. The Department of Health was there and I had a conversation with the woman in regards to what they feel is holding up the younger generation to getting their shots. And they have a pretty good idea of why, but they're not sure. So in your conversation, Jason, when you have those meetings, maybe they should be putting out and kind of put out there locally the myths that are out there about it. Because I don't think they've done that well enough to get that fear factor over that generation. Because she was saying from 19 to 25 is an issue. And we know that based upon what you're reading in the paper, UConn had 800 requests to have the flu shot excluded from their entries. And they did like 236 kids they exempted for medical reasons, and they're still reviewing the others. So it's a valid concern that they're saying, but they're not addressing it publicly. So I think they should do that in the future. That's all I got.
So in conversations, so there's 2 ways to motivate people, right? There's the carrot and there's the stick. So in conversations with Senator Anwar, there's a country, I think in Europe, where your cell phone is actually tied to your social security number or their equivalent of a social security number. And they've deactivated anybody's cell phone who does not have the vaccine. So young people are like rushing to go and get those turned back on. Carrot and stick, but you know what? They work. Sarah.
Okay, so as Jason already mentioned, I attended the ceremony at the East Windsor Police Department on the 20th, so I won't touch on that. But on July 21st, I attended the Board of Finance regular meeting. It was a short meeting, but it was great to be attending a meeting in person again. Finance Director Amy O'Toole updated the board on preliminary fiscal year 2020-2021 financials. Some highlights include state revenue exceeded budget by $60,000. Tax revenue exceeded budget by $500,000. Town clerk revenue exceeded budget by $66,000, and building revenue exceeded budget by $230,000. $98,000 of that being from the solar project on East Road. On August 1st, I attended the American Legion Pig Roast at the Barry Poulter Post 40. It was a beautiful day. The food was delicious and it was well attended, with many people thanking and supporting our veterans and those who continue to serve. On August 2nd, the Warehouse Point Fire Commissioners met. The addition to Station 1 should be completed by the end of this week. Once completed, there will be a final inspection from the building inspector, and once given the okay, they can begin occupying the building. Chief James Martin updated the commissioners that he was able to get the department's OSHA fine reduced to $560. The original fine was $1,580, which the inspector had reduced to $1,120. But after an informal conference with the chief, and based on corrective actions at the time of the visit, and all other corrections completed within a week of the final inspection, the fine was reduced to $560. There was a lengthy discussion on how the district should proceed with the fire marshal's vehicle. Commissioners discussed taking the current vehicle off the road, having the fire marshal use his personal vehicle and paying mileage, or having a take-home vehicle. The commissioners will continue discussion at their next meeting, and a vote is expected. Thank you to the East Windsor Parks and Recreation Department and the East Windsor Police Department for putting on another fabulous national night out on Tuesday night. The weather was perfect and it was great to see so many families enjoying the amenities of the park. And at the end, I just put a reminder about the Erase grant, which I don't need to talk about now, and that's it. Thanks.
Selectman Nordell.
Okay, July 19th, I attended special diversity council meeting that was held here in person. They had Senator Anwar and Representative Foster here, and they discussed recent bills that had gone through legislation and passed that dealt specifically with diversity and equality for all citizens in Connecticut. They also touched a little bit on ones that they're still working on and didn't get passed. A few days later, the Diversity Council had another meeting, but they didn't have enough members for a quorum, so they just had a few light discussions about things. And that was the end of that night. And the other thing I have is I also attended National Night Out, which was a great turnout. It was good to see everybody coming out and enjoying the weather and getting together and enjoying the sounds of Just Jeans. So that's all I have.
Selectman Baker.
Thank you. Planning and zoning continues to have pretty light schedules, not a lot going through there that's notable to report on. Wetlands as well they met last night, had no business whatsoever, except for agent decisions, which our enforcement agent is doing a great job of just catching the small stuff of the residents and getting those things taken care of without making them go through a long time frame of going to meetings and whatnot. So that's really been helpful. We are also tracking one fairly significant violation, working that through. But so that's what they've got going on. The only other meeting I had since our last meeting was the pension board, and we received a report on the health of the pension basically quarterly, and it's doing great. It's double digits, both the OPEB and the pension. They also had our second meeting with the fiduciary that was hired, so they added on a position that basically there's a person that is looking at the health of all the funds that are available in the 401k for employees to choose from, and making sure that they are actually something they should be investing in, and, you know, so they will, over time, take stuff out that's no good, add stuff in that's better, and just basically make sure that there's, you know, good places for people to put their money. So overall, it was really a nice thing to see, and makes me miss David King's leadership there, because our pension is really something that we can be proud of, that's well-funded and continues to grow. And will, even with the hit that we decided to take because of the longevity last year, the longevity tables were updated, so the actuary advised us that we should be changing our assumptions. We did that. We split the cost over 2 years, and that basically the effect of that dropped our funded percentage, but already we're just making it back. And so we're being very conservative in our assumptions, and Webster is doing a good job of making the money with the money. So real good there.
Thank you. We're now going to go on to public participation. First, are there any comments from members who are from members of the public who are here in person? Mr. Talamini, name and address, please.
Tom Talamini, 23 Rice Road. Just a little heads up, there's like 3 or 4 towns around here that have these solar canopies that we could be checking with other municipalities. Coventry, Windsor just put one up at the police department, at the Brandon Police Department. So we have a few, we can check, you know, municipalities. Coventry has one. So those are good starts. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, sir. Other comments from the public? Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Barbara Sherman, 12 Allen Drive, Brockbrook. I wish that we could put something in the newsletter that's coming out to tell people that we do not have bulk pickup, that they cannot put trash out next to their mailbox and expect it to be taken away. It won't be. It just sits there and deteriorates. Makes the place look terrible.
So you're talking about curbside bulk pickup.
Correct.
So one of the things that's on our working list that will be coming here shortly, it's at staff level right now, but is a discussion about the institution of a blight ordinance. That would have some enforceable teeth in it so that we could actually try and tackle that a bit.
That would be appreciated.
Other questions or comments from members of the public? Is there anyone online? Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, name and address, please.
Kathy Griffin, Walmart. I would like to know, people have asked me about it, when we're having the warehouse point build another fire department, we have a fire department down on Stoke Road not being used in any way, near or to my knowledge. And can anybody put a button on the kind of spending they're doing in this very difficult day and age, when people can't even pay the rents and they're spending? Terrific. That's what I'm getting.
Thank you, ma'am. So questions of that nature should be directed to the fire commission. They're a sovereign entity and they make their own financial decisions separate and apart
I
from
just
the
thought
town.
they'd
government.
see it themselves.
Sorry?
I just thought, sir, that they would see it themselves on ridiculous time. Thank you.
Nice to see you. Other comments from members of the public? Is there anyone online who would like to address the Board of Selectmen? Is there anyone online who would like to address the Board of Selectmen? Seeing none, we will have an executive session. So I'd ask to go into executive session to include Patty Cradaville, the tax collector. Sure. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are in executive session at 8:20 p.m. Opposed? So carried. That concludes the business on our agenda. That requires any action. Is there any further business to come before the board? Seeing none, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Move to adjourn at 9:48.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned at 9:48 PM. Thank you all very much.